Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 493.
Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. I'm so excited. Our next guest is the founder of the New Dawn Distilling, which launched a 6-year-old New York bourbon on Juneteenth, 2024. Welcome, Dr. Dawn O'Neill.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps? Share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business.
Sure. As you said, New Dawn Distilling dropped its first 6-year-old cast strength bourbon whiskey on Juneteenth of this year. Personally, though, I began the business last November. Actually, it's our 1-year-ish anniversary for the entire New Dawn Distilling endeavor. I left my job in conservation. I'd been working conservation for over a decade to start my own business, in large part because I wanted the ability to drive change. You do a lot in nonprofit conservation in terms of influencing. And I thought if I had my own business, we could do all of this sustainably. I wouldn't have to influence. I could just make these things happen. And so we have 3 real core values. 1, premium craftsmanship of our spirits, focusing on the differences of geography and distiller palates, in addition to sustainability, and then authentic partnerships. And for me, authentic partnerships are where both of us come to the table and we bring our special superpowers, find common ground, and it benefits both of us.
Speaking of superpowers, what is your superpowers?
I always say that because I started out my career thinking that I was going to be an academic professor and falling in love with research, it's researching. I am the person who does the deep dive and find out all of the details ahead of time. I'll say that starting your own business and how quickly we've progressed, I've had to get a little bit used to not always knowing everything ahead of time, which has both been exhilarating and at times a little anxiety inducing.
Why bourbon?
My family has been in bourbon, I will say, for quite some time. And by in bourbon, I mean that was the drink of choice when we gathered as a family for family reunions. I remember the family getting together and playing dominoes or Bocchino and everything. And bourbon was usually the drink that was on the table. My father's favorite tipple was always Gentleman Jack. But then when I went to graduate school, I met up with a lot of really cool graduate students who were into bourbon, and they sort of taught me the ways. We used to have these really epic tastings where we were tasting a bunch of really, I will say, high-end bourbons. I don't know where we got the money from. I will always remember the first time I brought a bottle and I went to the liquor store and I told the guy, don't embarrass me. I don't know what I'm doing, but I need something that's going to be good that people are going to be excited to try. And from then, it just became this whole sort of like, again, research, exploration, like, how is this being made? What are the differences? And I always thought I would start my own distillery when I retired. But with the passing of my mother in 2021, I really was like, you know what? Life's too short. Let's do this now.
My sincere condolences for the passing of your mom. And also, I want to say congratulations on your 1-year anniversary. So that's amazing.
Thank you.
There are so many brands and businesses that are dominating, Dr. Dawn. Talk about a brand or business that's dominating that you admire and why.
Oh, I will say I just came back from Taste of Black Spirits. And quite honestly, all of the brands that showed up there, they're such powerhouses. It's all of these Black entrepreneurs pushing their spirit brands forward. But I think the thing that really, I don't know, makes my heart cockles warm, if you will, is that we're all working together in community. It's not like we're in competition with each other. And so it's like, I had a booth next to Frisky Whiskey. And so we're both sitting here talking up each other's brands to people, getting people to taste them and all of that. Where everybody's very open about, sharing ideas. How can we collaborate? I walked away with so many different ideas for moving both my brand forward, but the Black spirits industry forward. And it just was like, absolutely amazing. And so it's like I admire all of those entrepreneurs. We all came into this from varying different reasons, directions, previous career paths, and everything. And frankly, we're all killing it. And it's just a sight to see.
And for our audience that's not aware of Taste of Black Spirits, where is it at the same place each and every year? Is it held around the same time? Can you give us some information about that?
Yeah, Taste of Black Spirits is spirits events that is put on by Lazar Favors and his Black Legacy group. They actually have I guess now three different locations. So there's Taste of Black Spirits Detroit, which is what I attended, and this was their 11th year, I believe, in Detroit. I believe it's held most of the time in the fall. Then there was Taste of Black Spirits Brooklyn last year, or I should say this year, spring was their inaugural offering. And then they're actually doing a Taste of Black Spirits Houston in early November. I think it's around the 11th. And you can find out more information if you follow Taste of Black Spirits on Instagram.
Thank you for that information.
Yes, of course.
What is something that we as consumers, we don't know about the bourbon industry or the spirit industry that we should know?
I would say it's the laws that dictate your spirit, like how your spirits get to you, how they're made, etc. A great deal of our laws they come from prohibition times and they haven't been changed since then. So there's an entire 3-tier system in place. The people that make it, the people that distribute it, and then the people that sell it to you, the retailers. And it's really quite interesting because like you may think to yourself, oh, it's just me, New Dawn Distilling. I'm the one who's packaging up your bottle and getting it to you. Absolutely not. I'm not even allowed to ship to people directly. I have to go through a distributor. And so when people ask me, oh, when are you coming to my state? And I'm like, well, it's probably going to take me some time because I have to find a distributor who works in your state, who is willing to take on me and my brand and then sell it to retail, or I should say, I still sell to retailers. They say, hey, we'll help sell it to retailers. They usually have a portfolio of retailers that they are selling to, but then I have to go door to door to each of those retailers and say, hey, will you stock my bourbon? So it's not like eggs, if you will, that just show up in all the grocery stores and everything, or like where you could go to a farmer's market and completely, if you will, cut out the middleman. That's not actually possible for me. I have an entire system of people who are working behind me or with me to get my alcohol to you, and that is because of the laws that are in place.
What is something that you wish you knew before starting your business?
Oh, so much. I guess this is the part where me not necessarily having the time and trusting God and of all the higher powers that it was just going to work out. I'm always saying I'm building this plane as we're flying it. But I really did wish I knew more about the laws in place as it relates to how the average consumer gets their alcohol. One of the things that was really most surprising to me was even for me to do a tasting, and some states requires me to have a solicitor's permit. And that's really hard, especially when I wanted to start out selling online because that allows me to reach more people than actually being in a store. So because I sell online, and I know a lot of people during the pandemic were a lot more comfortable with ordering online, but now that we've opened back up, people are going back into stores, which is great and wonderful. But at the same time, like I said, those are their limitations to how fast I can get into your local liquor store. That it was important to me to be able to offer it up online, but then to be sort of like find this barrier between being able to do a tasting in everybody's backyard, because I do know that's one of the best ways to get people to try and more comfortable with purchasing is, hey, can I try it first? Can I get a little taste of it? And sometimes it's like, well, I would love to, but I can't because I can't get the permit because I don't have a distributor, etc. And that part has made it frustrating because I just really want to be able to bring my bourbon to everybody, to be able to essentially try a new palate, try a palate coming from a Black woman, to be able to see, hey, New York has varying types of bourbon that is coming out of it and everything. Or even later when we're hoping to do a rye that's coming out of California in the spring, like, hey guys, this is like a really different tasting rye. Come try it. And so you just want to be able to reach as many people as possible. You don't want to gatekeep. And sometimes I keep running into these barriers and I have to be creative and or find new partners and collaborators in order to work around them.
I want you to have a monologue and I want you to name this person, living or not. They've inspired you so much. Who is that person and what are you saying to that person?
I would definitely say both of my parents have inspired me so much. And really, what I want to say to them is thank you. They never, they always pushed my sister and I to be the best at whatever we were setting our mind to do. But that pushing didn't come, I feel like, from it wasn't malicious, if you will, or driving and whatnot. It was simply, you can do this. And for me, I am so grateful to have had that support and to have had that sort of that nudge to move forward and to try things even when it was hard. Because when I made the leap into starting this business, again, I didn't really know what exactly was going to happen. And I had to trust. I had to trust in them that even though they aren't here, that they still, they still got me. I had to trust that they had given me all of the skills necessary, the ability to think through. I always say that my sister and I are some of the best strategic thinkers, but also systems thinkers. And I really think that that came from my parents. For me, it's just their ability to sort of see a lot of big picture things and work through the steps in order to achieve your goals. To, yes, recognize it's going to get frustrating and it's going to be hard, and you fall back on the rest of your community when you need it and everything. But essentially, you got this. And I can't even imagine not having that support in my life. I can't imagine that I would be where I am right now without that.
Who are your top two influencers, business mentors, however you define it, and what lessons did they teach you?
That's so interesting. I was just talking with, when I went to Taste of Black Spirits, I also did a presentation with the Sister Supply Chain Network. And what was it? I think it was Friday morning. We got this text message. It was like, it was like 10 minutes to get ready and whatever and go be on the radio. And then we were sitting there waiting to be on the radio and we were talking. And I'll say, I have deep respect for Lazar Favors, who and his Black Legacy Group. He is 1000% about elevating Black entrepreneurs, but he has 8 billion irons in the fire at all time. Like, it is constant motion. One might even say it's chaos, but the man is so calm and collected. He just, like, you'll call and I will call and I will be like, this isn't working out. And he'll be like, relax. We've got this. It'll work out. And he just like exudes that level of calm. And I would love that. I would love to be able to be that kind of force in the world, that kind of businesswoman, entrepreneur who has a million things going on for sure, but is always able to remain calm and collected and to see that you're going to work through it. And it's like I just said when I was talking about my parents, they always said hard times will come, you're going to work through it. I know it, but I'm still like anxious and whatever. But he was just so like, we got it. We'll work it out. And I'm like, I aspire. I aspire to being that type of entrepreneur 100%. And then I won't say that there's any one person. Truly, for me, it's every single time I meet another woman entrepreneur, whether it be in the spirits industry or outside of the spirits industry. I had a professional coach, Latrice Sneed, and she started her own consulting agency, Bonsai Leadership Group. Ursula Dunn, who works with Diageo, and she started the Sister Supply Chain Network. I just met the CEO and founder, Shirley, of OTC Beverage. She's over there in London doing non-alcoholic drinks. Nicole with Frisky Whiskey. Every time I meet these women in this industry, they're always like, they're such brilliant entrepreneurs, is what I will say. They have all, like, you could say maybe we're all inventing the wheel, but I would argue that they're reshaping the wheel to something that fits them and their values. And that I love. Like, it inspires me every day. Anytime I'm thinking about wavering from my values or my mission, or like, well, I could do this and make a little bit more room. And then it's like, no, I see these other women. They're so focused on doing it the way that feels true to them. And I'm like, that inspires me to stay true to my values. That inspires me to keep on, to know no matter what is happening outside, I'm doing it the right way because it is what's true to me. It's what makes me happy. And that, I just, like I said, I cannot tell you how beautiful it is to see, especially coming from conservation into this brand new industry, to see these women who are truly doing things their way. And it's just so inspiring.
Talk to a younger Dr. Dawn. What are you saying to a younger you?
Before I started my own business, I had all sorts of advice on the ways to make life easier to where you got to this one point in time. And while I would certainly love to be able to say to young Dr. Dawn, hey, by the way, X is going to happen and Y is going to happen over here, there is definitely a part of me that is like, I don't know if I could change anything. If I were going to tell my younger self anything, it's that it gets better, that you will persevere, that you will continue to thrive. I know that you are in these hard parts of your life right now. I know that things don't look certain. I would also tell myself, don't fixate on one certain path. Like, if I were to try to draw my path and everything, it would be all windy and all over the place. And the number of times I've thought, this is my path. I was going to be a marine biologist. And then I was going to be an ecologist and an academic professor. And then I was going to be CEO of one of these big green organizations. And it's just like life just kept shifting. Every time I thought, what does it say? Tell God your plans. Like, every time I thought I had a plan and I was like, this is what I'm doing. And then it would be like, no, you're not doing that. Your purpose is over here right now. I would tell my younger self to be open to that, to be open to changing your purpose, to being flexible. My current mantra right now is variety is the spice of life. And I might tell my younger self that variety is the spice of life. Be open to that change, be flexible to it.
What is the biggest obstacle that you have overcome?
I will always look at my life as two big obstacles, if you will. One was when I was unhappy in my postdoc and unsure of what the next step would be, because that was the first real shift in my career. Then I will say when I decided to quit my job and start my own business, that was the other big obstacle. And I had faced a lot of challenge and racism, I guess is what I will say, which made me really sort of think to myself, I need to be working for myself because I need to be able to have the ability to walk away from situations, partnerships, collaborations, whatever you want to call them, that aren't serving me, that are causing me harm. When you think that you're in a partnership that is where we're both working together towards mutual benefit, and it turns out it's not. But when you are working for somebody else, you always have to like do that delicate dance of, well, I don't want to ruin the overall organization's relationship with that. And I needed the space to be able to make those decisions on myself. So I would say those are the two biggest obstacles, while also saying when starting my own business, trusting in my vision and where I wanted to go. While it's not uncommon for people to start spirits brands, I mean, it used to be really, really common, like early in the spirits industry. More and more, you have people who are starting their own distilleries, and everybody who does that, I have the utmost respect for because it requires a lot of capital, a lot of dedication. You're buying like a space, a building, and then in many cases, you have to wait 5, 6 years or whatever to put, or 2 years even to put out, if you're talking about whiskey, to put out a good offering. And so it's like when you say, I'm going to start a brand, right now that feels unusual. And the number of sort of people that I talked to who were like, I'd never heard of that before. And one person in particular I talked to who essentially made me feel like I didn't know what I was talking about and I was crazy and whatever. And it was just like, no, I know this exists. I know that there are brands out there who contract distill and everything, who look towards, hey, how can I help these smaller distilleries and everything who've made that investment and whatever, help them also get their name out there. And that for me was an obstacle to like, I'm constantly reminding myself. I even have this little note on my computer that reminds me that this is my company, that I determine the culture, I make the decisions, and reminding myself that people don't want perfection, they want real and to slow down and celebrate. And I just have to like, that is like guiding force for me moving forward and an obstacle that I'm constantly getting over of, hey, that's right, this is my business. I get to make those decisions. I get to choose the direction.
And speaking of wins and celebrations, let's take a snapshot of the last 30 days. What was your biggest win and how did you celebrate?
I have two big wins in the last 30 days. First and foremost, actually, tomorrow, we're bottling my 10-year wheated whiskey that is going to drop November 1st. And that for me is a win because it's like, hey, I'm in a space. I can take that next step. We can offer up our second offering on schedule as promised and everything. And I happen to be staying with friends right now in upstate New York. And so I'm extra excited because I'm here and I don't have to travel back up from New Orleans and everything. We celebrated together, making that, signing that contract, making that big step forward. I always celebrate with bubbles. Sometimes they're with a bourbon cocktail. So the French 95 is, what is it, like a French 75, but with bourbon. And I also have a signature cocktail that has fig syrup in it, celebrating with one of those. And then my second bin win was actually Taste of Black Spirits. That was my very first tasting event and we killed it. We had tons of people coming up to us. They wanted to buy bottles off of me from at my tasting table. And I was like, I'm sorry, the laws, I can't. I would love to, but you can buy online and everything. People were coming back for multiple tastes. I was told that I had the best bourbon in the room and all of that. Like that was such a huge win for me. It was such a huge step forward. There is actually the buyers for Myers grocery stores there, and they were wildly enthusiastic and everything. And so we have talks coming up with them. And so for me, it was just like, wow, this is and I had my family, my sister and my cousin Malcolm were there with me. And I was so happy to be able to be surrounded by family and to see what we've done over the past 5 months and everything come to this fruition of direct face-to-face confirmation of, hey, our product is good. We love the vibe of your booth, all of that. That was just fantastic.
Congratulations. Let's talk about raising capital to start your business. How did you raise the capital?
A large portion of my business actually is self-funded. When I made the decision to make the leap, my husband and I sort of sat down and we were like, yeah, I think we can do this. Like I said, my mother had passed, and I'm very fortunate that both of my parents they were both accountants and into finance and investing. And so they did leave us a small nest egg. And that again is why I say they are two people who have inspired me so much, because you don't very often see Black people who are able to say, hey, I got money. I have money for my family. And my family money then is what helped me start this business. We are in the process right now of, it's funny because things I didn't know is whipping your finances together in order to get financial investment moving forward. We are hoping, I should say we're hoping because it's like this is my manifestation talk. We will be looking for investors as we're putting out the rye in the spring, and then looking towards the next step of what will come next in terms of our offerings. My goal is to essentially offer new things on a semi-annual basis so that we are constantly, again, that variety is the spice of life, constantly sort of intriguing people in terms of the flavors. And to do that, I'm going to need investment. But to start, for me, raising capital, I have not yet done that. But I will say that advice for others is when you're starting out is to put your books together thinking that you will be getting investors and raising capital. They want to see a little bit, I guess, I don't want to say special, but they want to see extra information. And it's not that hard to set up your books that way. But if you don't set them up to the beginning, then you have to sort of get them cleaned up by somebody, which for a person like me who has always hated math and finance and money and whatever, I'm like, it's the least exciting part of my job.
Talk about marriage and managing a business.
Yes, I would say, at least for me, we went into this knowing that this would be my business but that we would be having conversations and discussions about how it impact us together. And I say that because when you're setting up your business, if they're going to ask you, is this a family business, both you and your husband owning, or is it, or you and your partner owning, or is it just going to be you? And then you have to make those decisions, and you can put these legal frameworks in place and everything that both protect your partner if they're not going to be co-owners and whatnot. But it's also one of those things where, and it's always funny when you're talking to, I feel like, lawyers sometimes, because they're like, maybe not the most positive, optimistic, because they're always giving you the bad scenario. And they're like, so if you get a divorce, you want to be able, and you're like, we're not getting it. We're like, what? Never. And so, but we had that conversation before I even went and talked to them that, yes, we're going to set this up. This is going to be your business. We'll say we still have ongoing conversations, though my husband is very much like, this is your business of like, again, I'm the one who gets to make the decisions. Like he might have advice and he can definitely give advice, but I don't have to take it. You know what I mean? Like it's not our business. It's Dawn's business. But those were conversations that I think are always really important to have with your partner when you are going into endeavors like this. And then constantly checking in. So I do treat him like if I were to have a board or something like this silent board member where I am like, hey, here's what's happening with the business. This is where we are financially. This is what I'm thinking of doing next and all of that, because while it is mine, I don't want it to be a surprise. When I buy the 10-year type deal, I don't want it to be a surprise if I'm shifting XYZ and all of that. I want him to know what risks that we're taking or that I'm taking, because I do think we're taking the risks together. Because if the business doesn't succeed, which I feel like it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't think about it. Again, I'm manifesting the good, but he's going to be there to catch me. And if the business succeeds, I'm going to be there pulling him along. So it's like one of those things where you still are partners in it, even if he's the silent partner.
Advice you wish you had followed.
I wish that I had taken this leap sooner. That is what I would say. I wish that I had trusted in myself and my ability to work through things and not like, I wish that I had done this sooner. I had gotten the advice many, many times before that I should start my own business. And I was always like, oh, I couldn't possibly, what would I do? Like, just like it's not possible. And I wish that I had done this sooner because I'm always saying I'm old. And I know I'm only 44. It's not that old, but but in your mind, you're like, if I had done this sooner, imagine the steps, the leaps and the steps that I could have taken. And I say that especially when I talk about it from the sustainability standpoint, because I'm a brand new brand. So there's a lot of me having to like build this street cred, etc. But one of my like goals essentially to eventually move us into this packaging, it's these paper bottles. They call it Frugal Pack. And I want to move us into Frugal Pack, but there are all of these sort of like from a consumer standpoint, things that you have to like essentially get over. You have to like people need to be familiar with your brand, with your product, because what you're offering them is a much lighter bottle, probably doesn't potentially look as sexy and everything. And when you want to talk about offering premium craft spirits, they want to hold a bottle and feel like it's premium craft spirits. And this is like a huge mindset change. And so for me, it's like, we're going to get there for sure. But in the process, I am like trying to build up that street cred. And I'm like, oh, if I was done this when I was younger, we would already be there. I would have already rolled out this super sustainable packaging and everybody would be like, yeah, we totally get it. It's still premium and luxury and all of that because we also know that what's in the bottle is really good.
Dr. Dawn, what problem exists in the world today that you would like to solve?
I would say it's around climate change, access to clean water, really just a great deal of the environmental damage that we have done. I live in New Orleans and I've been super fortunate because I moved just after Ida and we haven't had a really big damaging storm since I moved, but was paying attention to Helene and the damage that it's caused up and down the coast. For me, that is like something that I just like, I would love. And I know it seems unlikely that a bourbon business is going to solve, but what I want to be more than anything is an example of, hey, you can do this. You can have high quality premium spirits and still do right by the environment. You can still work with farmers who are doing organic or regenerative agriculture, which is a step above, if you will, organic, where you are actually returning the soil to a better state than where you started and all of that, where we are doing in our terms of our water consumption and championing clean water and making sure everyone has access to clean water because you need clean water to make your spirits and all of that. And so it's like, for me, I just want to be that example of you can go into business, period, but in this case, the spirits business and be sustainable and do right by the environment. And that you can start making these changes, start driving these changes that will leave the planet in a better place than where we started because we're not going in the right direction right now, but it's totally possible for us to start changing the trajectory and we can do that. And it's probably in large part going to be driven by not just consumers. I know that everybody is like, oh, you got to recycle, you got to drive less and whatever, but it's not just the consumers, it's the businesses. It's thinking about, hey, what happens when we put a product out there? What's the life cycle look like for that product? What steps are we making from, start to finish to make sure that we are doing right by the planet? So that we can have clean water for everybody, so we can have fewer storms, so we can continue to make beautiful spirits into the future.
If you lost everything, Dr. Dawn, and you had to rebuild in 30 days, what industry and why?
I might still stick with the spirits industry. In the environmental space, conservation space, there is a lot of frantic hope, if you will. And in the spirits industry, it feels a little bit just more like there's hope. It's not frantic. People are a lot more positive. I mean, maybe it's because they're spirits and we're drinking, and that has a tendency to make you a little bit happier. But I have so much to learn here in this industry. And there are definitely things that I could have done differently. And so, yeah, if I had to rebuild in 30 days, I might still stick with the spirits industry and move forward from there.
I've heard a statement that your why should make you cry. And if your why doesn't make you cry, maybe your dream is not big enough. Why do you do what you do?
this really does go back to the environmental sustainability part. I do what I do because I believe that I can drive change with my business. And I could probably again choose a different industry and it would be the same thing, but my why is, can business be sustainable? Can entrepreneurs hit the ground running thinking, how can we do right by the environment? How can we make the planet better than when we started? I really do think that part is really driving me forward here. In addition to the authentic collaboration, I have been in so many partnerships that were not really partnerships. And it is wildly refreshing, but also like that's that hopeful part that I talk about, where you meet people and you're having these conversations and you're brainstorming. I mean, we were at Taste of Black Spirits and we're brainstorming ways that we could add sustainable aspects to the supply chain and everything, and how I might push forward frugal pack, and how we could set up a trial base. Like it was just like this free flowing idea and just free flowing of ideas. And you knew that nobody was sitting there holding back thinking, this is my golden ticket. This is how I'm gonna make millions. Everybody is like, let's just share all the things so that we can get them on the table. And if one of us pushes this forward, it'll be amazing. For me, it's a combination of that. My why is, can I do this in a way that is sustainable, good for the planet, and with these authentic partnerships that bring people to the table that perhaps haven't been offered a seat before, so that we can continue to keep those ideas flowing.
Let's talk about legacy. When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I would probably say as a good person. That is like the thing that I want to be remembered by. I will say right now, where we are in our sort of political landscape, that's one of the things I'm like, don't these people want to be remembered positively and whatever? And I want to be remembered as a good person for sure. I would love for this endeavor to turn into a family business and everything and be something that I can leave to my nieces and nephews for sure. And that they would take up that mantle of, sustainability, authentic partnership and everything. But I really just want to be remembered as being a good person.
And what can the B podcast, the B Nation, our tribe, what can we do, those that listen to Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, what can we do right now to support your business?
Well, I guess I'll make a broader call and say support Black businesses, which of course everybody listening is already doing, but that is probably the biggest piece you can do to move things forward. I will say that there are so many wonderful businesses out there for literally anything that you would regularly buy. And if you could buy Black, it would start changing the narrative. And the reason why I say that is because I know that there are many people out there who are like, why does it matter? And it matters because when you see that representation, then it opens up possibilities for the younger generation. When you see that representation in the spirits industry, like I was talking about, you get wildly different palettes who are making things. And like, I always think about it in terms of food in general. And so it's like, we always joke about Black people and their seasoning, but it's like when you start thinking about Chinese cuisine and the flavors that you're getting from over there compared to Indian, compared to Caribbean and all of that. And it's like we end up in a space where we have so many more options. We have like amazing amounts of delicious foods to choose from. The same thing goes for spirits. You're going to end up with many more delicious spirits to choose from. You may think all bourbons taste the same. They don't, and everything. And up until now, though, a lot of those bourbons have been made by white palates, and they have been delicious bourbons. But you have to recognize that when you start bringing other taste buds to the table, you're going to start getting different flavors, different methods. And for me, that is like, and that extends to our beauty products, that extends to household products. You're going to start getting different ways of thinking about things. And for me, that's how we, again, go back to that environmental sustainability, because you're going to get different ideas coming to the table of how can we do this in a way that is better for the planet. I mean, beauty industry has taken off in terms of all natural, paraben free, etc. And we needed that to happen. But for it to happen, you needed some people to coming to the table saying, we don't want this in our products anymore. And so the same, I think, holds true. But you can always support me personally, going to the website, buying a bottle. We are available in, I think, what is it, 43 states. We will very shortly be available in what we call the liquor control states: Michigan, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Ohio. So join the newsletter in order to, I should say, join the community and our community newsletter so you can stay up to date on when we start shipping to all 50 continuous states. And yeah, buy black. That's what I would definitely tell everybody.
Dr. Dawn, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
Oh, if I were gonna, that's like the what do I always wish people would ask me? I don't know. That's a good one. And I say that especially because you had really great questions like, my wins of the last 30 days. I guess I would go with, what does a typical day look like for me? And the only reason why I say that is because it is, for me, it's a reminder that work doesn't always have to look like we think it should be, the 9 to 5, boring, whatever. I'm a big fan of self-care, mental health, and all of that. And so for me, one of the biggest pieces of moving into my own business, and again, being able to set that culture, is being able to set the space to be like, you know what, today is not working for me. Like literally there will be, and it's like, I'm talking to my cousin Malcolm, who is heading up some of our social media stuff, and it takes a lot of the video and photography. And he'll be like, I think he was sick the other day, and he's like, I'm not feeling well, but I'm gonna get this. And I was like, whoa, we we don't do that here. I was like, close your computer, go take a nap, make sure you're all right. It'll be fine if it comes out later, and all of things. Everybody's sense of urgency and whatever is just that, a sense of urgency. That is not how we have to work here. For me, typical days, there is no typical day, is what I would say. Every day is different. I try to give myself the space. I try not to take any calls after noon on Friday. I try not to take any calls before noon on Mondays and all of that. And that's just to have the space to like get ready for the week and to close out the week. And then in between that, there is a lot. For me, a typical day is right now, because I have all the hats, I'm checking the social media, making social media posts, reviewing the finances and all of that. But I'm also like testing out cocktails or tasting new bourbons that come through, that it's like possible collaborations for the future. I like, when I was starting this off, one of the big things was I had to tell myself, we don't start drinking until 10. And that would be just because I would need from 10 until, I don't know, 5 o'clock or something like that, to get through the number of samples that I had for the day, to start whittling down and all of that. And I remember I was with my family and they were a little bit like, oh, she's serious. But then they realized I wasn't like drinking. I'm like tasting. I have notebooks of like copious notes on the flavors and the whatever. Yeah, I like what a typical day like for me, which is not typical at all. No one day is the same. And that I need to choose that space so that I can remain healthy. And I'll say healthy and confident and happy, which has been amazing for me.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called a rapid round of fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the rapid round of fun?
Let's do it.
All right, your ideal car.
A Ford Mustang.
Your first job.
Camp counselor.
The last movie you saw.
Black Panther. It was on television.
You relax doing what?
Reading, definitely.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
All of them? I can't think of much as one.
Your favorite dance song?
Right now, the song Fabulous by, I guess, CUT.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Oh, no, that is not me. Variety is the spice of life.
Your ideal or favorite comfort food?
Pie.
Work out or hit the couch?
Somewhere in between, probably the couch.
Dr. Dawn O'Neill, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you, to do business with you, and feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Like I said, I really enjoy your questions. They were not the run of the mill, and so I love when people have me thinking about how the business works. You can follow us on newdawndistilling.com. We have a community newsletter. It's not spammy. I think we send out something once a month. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at New Dawn Distilling. I think, and Pinterest. That's the other one. We also have a YouTube channel, all of them under New Dawn Distilling. And truly come out and follow us so that you'll see the next time we're doing a tasting. Come out and have a pour. I'll be excited to pour you soon, the 6-year and the 10-year. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.